Okay, so this is the third part of a three-part audiobook reading of Physical Control of the Mind Towards a Psychocivilized Society by Jose Delgado, MD. I like to read, especially in cases like this when I'm kind of studying the text. So if you want to read along, here is the link to a free text version of the book that doesn't have all the chapters and are missing some paragraphs, but will work for this purpose. So let me post that for you. Um, I didn't like how it looked when I put the title on there, so I'm just gonna put the link, and then you know it's for this textbook. I'm putting the link on actually TalkShoe does it better than YouTube, so I could actually do that separation. So I'm putting on TalkShoe now, just in case anybody.
Recording started.
Okay, that's TalkShoe. Yeah. So let me do that. Sorry, I got all these windows open. I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, so anyway, it's up there. So if you're on TalkShoe, I posted it and then I posted the title. I was trying to post it together, but every time I press enter, it just posted whatever I wrote. Anyway, so let's get started. So that said, this is the third part. Let me read the disclaimer. Which is the opinions expressed on this forum is not representative of PLN's official stance. RX's opinion is based on the information available at the time and not PLN's official stance. Not everyone who calls in is a TI. The gang stalkers have a tendency to pretend to be TIs and interfere with activities related to TIs. PLN and RX can't guarantee that TI hour participants, including guests, are real TIs or if what is being said by anyone is true. This isn't to invalidate anyone, but to take into consideration that gang stalkers sometimes pretend to be TIs. Okay. So that said, I gave you the link. So we're going to go right into this. And let me start playing the chapters. Okay. So that was the first 15 minutes. So I reviewed last week's video and I noticed that I didn't realize that when I'm adjusting my headphones like this, that it caused noise in the video. So I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I'll try not to do it as much. And then while I was reviewing last week's video, while reviewing last week's book club video again, I found that some parts were left out, like a few sentences, which weren't that important, but I haven't gone through the whole thing yet. I don't know what it did. It was just like it skipped over a few sentences and then like started with another one. I don't know what that was about, but I didn't find anything like really big missing, or else I'd just like repeat it to you. Um, so this 15 minutes. So it said it should be clarified that I'm talking about directing each phase of a response and not about complex behavior such as lever pressing or fighting, which may be triggered by ESB, but develops according to individual experiential circumstances, which are beyond electrical control. And that's on page 95 of the PDF. So this is a reminder that Delgado's research wasn't able to completely take over someone. When I go subliminal, the gang stalkers talk about possessing other people. In a way, one can describe what Delgado did as a sort of possession of his subjects. If electronic harassment uses a similar behavioral technology as Delgado's research or mind control, whatever you want to call it, you can see how electronic harassment can make it seem as if the gang stalkers has possessed someone, you know? And then it goes on later to say, much of the brain participates in learning, and a monotonous train of pulses applied to a limited pool of neurons cannot be expected to mimic its complexity. The acquisition of new skills The acquisition of a new skill is theoretically and practically beyond the possibilities of electrical stimulation, but ESP can create the desire to perform certain acts which may be skillful. And that's also on page 95. So those scenes from The Matrix where Morpheus downloads martial arts skills into Neo's head is theoretically impossible according to Delgado. However, that was back in the early 1970s. Delgado says that his research could make Neo want to learn martial arts, but it can't make his body instantly know how to perform all the moves like an expert, like in the movie. The next thing is personal identity, and later on it says personal identity and reactivity depend on a large number of factors accumulated through many years of experience interacting with genetic trends within the complexity of neuronal networks. Language and culture are among the essential elements of individual structure. All these elements cannot be substituted for by the delivery of electricity to the brain. Memories can be recalled, emotions can be awakened, and conversations speeded up by ESP, but patients always express themselves according to their background and experience. It is possible to disturb consciousness, to confuse sensory interpretations, or to elicit hallucinations during excitation of the brain. It is also possible to induce fear, pleasure, and chances in aggressive behavior, but these responses do not represent the creation of a new personality. Only a change in only a change in emotionality and reactivity within the appearance of manifestations closely related to the previous history of the subject, and that's on page 95. This is saying that his research can't instantly change someone's personality. The responses it evokes will be in line with the person's personal identity. You can kind of see why gaslighting is necessary to use with electronic harassment. For example, if a gang stalker wanted to sleep with a person who had strong religious values about abstinence until marriage, electronic harassment won't work. Gaslighting would have to be used to change the person's mind, kind of resetting their reality, to allow premarital sex, and then electronic harassment could be used to push the person past the brink. They have to break down your morals and values to get you to do what they want. And that kind of explains why like so much effort is put into street theater, destruction of your life, destruction of your finances and stuff. All this like stuff that just seems random and insane, they have to do because, and it might be like Delgado, it was ESB, which stands for electrical stimulation of the brain, I think. Delgado's ESB couldn't completely take over the person, and it might be still true that they haven't reached that point where they could just like zap you and you become someone else. So the gaslighting, or they zap you and you'll automatically do everything that you've ever been against. That's why it kind of takes time, and maybe that's why the campaigns last so long. I guess, I don't know, sometimes you wonder like, what is the end goal of this thing? So maybe the campaigns last long and takes years because sometimes it just, and it's weird because for some TIs they break quickly, and that's not to say that you're weak or anything. No one knows the dynamics or what's going on with these, but they are trying to break down TIs, okay, or whoever it is that they're after. So some TIs break easier and quicker than others, and some take a while. So I'm guessing, sometimes for some people it'll take years and years and years because they're still breaking down who you are through their gaslighting and destruction of your life and stress and building up all this kind of anxiety and all this BS that TIs have to experience. So they're using that to mentally like drain you, and then the electronic harassment comes in, and I guess it makes it work better. I'm just guessing. Let's see. So later on, it says a complete change in personality is beyond a complete change in personality is beyond the theoretical and practical potential of ESB. Although limited modification of a determined aspect of personal reactions is possible. In spite of important limitations, we are certainly facing basic ethical problems about when, why, and how some of these changes are acceptable, and especially about who will have the responsibility of influencing cerebral activities of other human beings. And that's page 96. I got to read that again because this is so important. A complete change in personality is beyond a complete change in personality is beyond the theoretical and practical potential of ESB, although limited modification of a determined aspect of personal reactions is possible. In spite of important limitations, and listen to this, we are certainly facing basic ethical problems about when, why, and how some of these changes are acceptable, and especially about who will have the responsibility of influencing the cerebral activities of other human beings. Page 96. What happened here? Back around the 1970s, there were scientific breakthroughs that allowed people's minds and bodies to be remotely controlled by other people. This was an accepted fact. And in that paragraph that I read twice, because it's important, Delgado is talking about how to control such a new technology. We are certainly facing basic ethical, he said, we are certainly facing he said we are certainly facing basic ethical problems about when, why, and how some of these changes are acceptable, and especially about who will have the responsibility of influencing the cerebral activities of other human beings. However, Delgado and other scientists were ahead of their times. Okay, they were completely ahead of their time, and the general public wasn't ready for this. There was a big public outcry, and when his experiments happened, and there was a big public outcry, and mind control experiments were public were. There was a big public outcry, and mind control experiments were publicly shut down. I mean, the reason why that's so important, in case you didn't get it, was because he made that speech back in the 1970s. Pretty much, it was just like it's an acceptance speech, meaning something's done. We're there. Now we're moving on to the next part. Okay, it's like if Apple created the iPod. Let's go way back to when the iPod was created, and you know, people were like, "Oh, one day we're gonna have our whole music collection on this small little gadget." I think that was a Nano, whatever. Okay, so iPod. So, okay, and we're going to be able to watch videos. Okay, that's the iPod, right? We're going to be able to watch videos on it. And this was like years before, and Apple just comes out with the iPod, and they're like, we have now created the iPod, which will allow you to have your whole music collection and watch videos on this small little device. Okay, that's done. Now, what we need to think about now is what kind of content we're going to have on this iPod. How's it going to affect lives and stuff? Meaning the results are in, it's done, we've achieved the technology. Now we're looking forward to what's next. What are we going to do? How's this going to roll out? Da 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 da. So he basically said we have created something that can control minds and bodies remotely, with limitations, of course. And now that we've done that, let's move forward and figure out how we're going to use this technology. Who's going to be responsible for controlling other people? Okay, when it should be used. That is so huge. I hope someone out there understands why this is such a big deal. I'm not like exaggerating. I'm not making a big deal of anything, but this is pretty much like, I don't know. I hope someone out there gets it, like why that's a big deal, that he said this way back in the 1970s, that they can control people remotely, and that a scientist already achieved that in his university lab. Okay. So without, let me not stress the point. So, so when he said that, it was shut down. So what does that mean? It means that we've developed futuristic mind manipulation technology way back around the 1970s. It's all been done, but the public didn't want it. However, it's already done. It's done. We don't have to wait till we're in 2020. Okay, just get with it. We're in 20. I think the DOJ needs to understand we are in 2020. Technology is advanced. It's like everything's up, So it's like to even like think that mind control is like something in the future. We're not back in the last century. We've advanced so much. Technology is there. This is 2020. So I think like the context of behavioral technology and mind control, the concept is here. Okay, it's time to like catch up. So Delgado, however, did this back in the 1970s, and they were ahead of his time. And he was ahead of his time, and the general public wasn't ready for it. And there was a big public outcry, and mind control experiments were publicly shut down. I already read that. So yeah, however, it's already been done. The technology is already here, and it's been here for the last 50 or more years. Because remember, when you do research, okay, the research has to be done. It has to be kind of like stabilized where other scientists could replicate it and get the same results as you. And then it has to be tweaked. There's like a whole years of process while you're doing research, especially on something like that. And you have to be certain that it works. Scientists have to come in or whatever. They could do your research somewhere else and say, hey, this scientist did this. We did the same thing. We got the same results. It's a scientific fact now. So that's why I say 50 or more years, because even though he wrote the book in 1970s, his research was had to pan out way ahead of time before, not unless he I don't know, he's some kind of genius who was able to figure out mind control in a day, or a year. I don't know, but I don't think that's possible. Well, I mean, it might be, but I don't know, whatever. I don't think that's what happened. So I think it's 50 or more years. So this behavioral technology has already been here for the last 50 or more years. The public just doesn't want to know about it. And maybe that's why they don't want to hear TI's claims. Maybe maybe they don't want to hear TI's claims because it's scary. It is scary. That's scary. That someone could actually the part that got me in the book was when he said, oh, we had a patient and Delgado was able to sit there and control her anxiety level just by turning a knob. He raised and lowered her anxiety level just sitting there turning a knob. That was really freaky to me. And I understand why the public is scary. It's why the public thinks it's scary. But it's time to face the truth. As Delgado said, it's here. It's been here, whether you like it or not. And I don't think the TIs are crazy. I think the general public is just scared. Okay? Scared of what this mind manipulation technology could do. Whether you want to believe it or not, mind control has already been achieved. Okay, it's not in the future. We are in the future. It is 2020. It's not in the future. It's not going to happen in 2050. It's not going to happen in 3000s. It's here. It's been here. So mind control has already been achieved. It has been swept underneath the carpet for many years, and okay, don't kill the messenger. I have to be the bearer of bad news, but I am introducing the new elephant in the room: behavioral technology. Behavioral technology. Okay. It's time to deal with this because although the public rejected and refused to fund it, I believe that the research has been I believe that the research has been continuing privately and quietly, and it's time to deal with it. If I keep repeating that, it's because it's time to deal with it. I'm trying to drive that message in. It's time to deal with it. We went there. We went there. We went there. Okay. Mind control, behavioral technology, all that stuff. We went there. And now it's time to deal with what we've done. TIs have been innocent victims of some kind of technology that can do similar things. Excuse me. TIs have been innocent victims of technology that can do things similar to Delgado's research. By talking to TIs and investigating their claims, humans can get a grasp of the harm that mind manipulation technologies can cause and what can happen if it got into the wrong hands. In other words, TIs have lived out most of the general public's worst fears about this technology and can talk about their experiences in order to offer insight into what the existence of mind manipulation technologies can do. It's time to listen and take the TI seriously before it's really too late. I don't want to scare you, but psychopaths have gotten a hold of these technologies, and it's time to stop giving them monopoly over behavioral technology by pretending that mind manipulation technologies don't exist. Okay, stop pretending it doesn't exist, or it's never existed, or it hasn't been achieved, or that it's impossible. We just read a book. This 3-week book club just read a book written by a scientist, a real scientist, you know, who was doing his research at a really good school, and he says it's been done. Okay. He's even said it's been done. Let's move on. Let's figure out how we're going to move forward. Okay. At this point, the general public is really pretending that this isn't possible and doesn't exist. That's what's happening right now. Right now, we're just playing pretend. Oh, what if mind control existed? Oh, what if we could do that? No, we could do it. Okay. Delgado's book doesn't hint at what could be done. It explicitly says what he has accomplished. Okay. It's 2020 and it's time to finally do something about this. Seriously. And later on, it says electrical stimulation of the central nervous system requires careful planning, complex methodology, and skillful collaboration of specialists with knowledge and experience in anatomy, neurophysiology, and psychology. Several prerequisites, including construction of delicate multi-lead electrodes and refined facilities for stereotactic neurosurgery, are necessary. And that's on page 96. So when I read this, I just it sounds like the voiceover for a video showing the building of a new medical facility for electrical brain stimulation. I can see the video like panning like a new and glossy high-end medical waiting room and surgical unit with like all these like fancy technologies. And then the narrator says the selection of neuronal technology and appropriate parameters of stimulation require further sophistication and knowledge of functional brain mapping, as well as electronic technology. In addition, medical and psychiatric experience is necessary in order to take care of the patient, to interpret the results obtained, and to plan the delivery of stimulations. These elaborate requirements limit the clinical application of intracerebral electrodes, which, like other modern medical interventions, depend on teamwork, equipment, and facilities available in only a few medical centers. Doesn't it sound like that? It sounds like, they're like funding a new building, they're building a new technology. It's going to be open in like this expensive hospital, and it's going to be like only rich people could get it. I don't know. So that's what it sounded like to me. And but this is saying that a team of specialists are required, like in the case of complex surgeries, So um surgeons need they need extended training. So not every doctor can perform heart surgery, right? So those are specialists. So that's what this is saying. This is going to require specialists. Your neighborhood doctor, your routine medical care doctor is not going to be able to do this. This is going to be like surgery, okay? So there probably won't be my manipulation. Excuse me. So there probably won't be my manipulation facilities everywhere, and not every hospital will have it. So no, you can't go see your, doctor and get your brain zapped or whatever. So that's what that is saying. And then at the same time, the procedure's complexity acts as a safeguard against the possible improper use of ESB by untrained or ethical persons. That's on page 96. Too bad this isn't true. Okay. Delgado thought that other professionals in his field operated with the utmost moral code, but that wasn't and isn't so. There is a learning curve in order to use his research, but that won't stop a drug addict if she or he is recruited by a scientist or a doctor who knows how to use the technology and can teach the drug addict the basics. TIs, I think you know what I'm talking about, because it seems like I read something or I saw a video where a TI was like, it just seems like to just pick anyone off the street to do this. So I don't know. I don't know. Delgado was like, I don't know. He was in his Ivy Towers and stuff. And I don't know. So I don't believe that part. So later on, it says, for example, reading a book or listening to a conversation involves reception of many messages which cannot be mimicked by ESB. A pattern of behavior which is not in the brain cannot be organized or invented under electrical control. ESB cannot be used as a teaching tool because skills such as playing the piano, speaking a language, or solving a problem require complex sensory inputs. So this paragraph is comforting, but remember, this is about research that was done in the 1970s. It could be more advanced now. And this also goes back to the Matrix downloading learning scene. Delgado's research didn't go that far. So it's pretty much saying this. It's kind of just reinforcing what he said before, or what I've explained before. So later on, it says sequential behavior or even elemental motor responses cannot be synthesized by cerebral stimulation, although they are easily evoked if they have already been established in the excited area of the idiokinetic formulas. And this could explain why TIs react differently to electronic harassment and why the beast tailored the campaign to each TI. Some TIs may be more violent than others. Others may be more susceptible to using drugs or alcohol to deal with the campaigns. Some may develop real mental issues while others don't. It can differ from person to person. So even if a TI is more susceptible to alcohol abuse, sickness, or psychological issues, it doesn't mean that they can't stop those things from happening or do something about it. If a TI knows that she or he, let's use she because I don't feel like saying she or he. Okay, if a TI knows that she is prone to alcoholism, and this is an example, she should expect that the gang stalkers are going to try to use that against her. What they do is they find your weaknesses. If they can't develop a weakness, they will find your weaknesses first. They're gonna work with what they have. They're gonna figure out, because they're lazy. Okay, they're lazy and they're stupid. Anyway, so they're gonna find out what they have to work with first. So if you have had an alcohol problem in the past, if you had a breakdown in the past, if you were depressed in the past, anything that they could work with. If you thought your feet were too big in the past, because they are petty. If you thought, this mole on your left cheek was bad in the past, they are just, anyway, they will use anything, okay? So they're going to go with that. So let's say this TI has an alcoholism issue. They're going to try to use that against her. But however, now that she knows that, and she knows a little bit more about electronic harassment, she can figure out ways to stop or reduce the pressure so that she doesn't fall into the alcoholism trap. So that sentence I read was kind of confusing. It wasn't like really clear. But all it's saying is that the ESP, like if you don't have alcoholism, the ESP is not going to make you an alcoholic. Okay. But if you had an alcohol problem in the past, ESB can make you want to. Remember the example I gave before, where that you can't use ESB to make Neo know all the martial art moves, but you can make him want to know all the martial art moves if that's something that he was interested in before. So maybe you won't become an alcoholic. That's going to take some gaslighting to make you an alcoholic. That's where everything. So if you're not an alcoholic, and they want you to become an alcoholic, they want to develop new issues for you and stuff, they're going to go through the gaslighting. They're going to try to get you to start drinking, bringing planting people in your life, to get you to do that, causing you all kinds of problems, and then saying, oh, go get a drink, you'll feel better. And then that's how they get someone who's not alcoholic or have had past alcohol issues to become alcoholic. I mean, if you're just someone who's an occasional drinker, but you're not an alcoholic, that's something they'll work with. They'll just be like, oh, just drink wine, it always makes you feel better. And then you find, oh, drink wine. They'll be using gaslighting and all that stuff to make you want to drink wine because it makes you feel better. Drink wine because it makes you feel better. They're going to be causing all kinds of unnecessary drama. You're going to want to drink wine because it makes you feel better. Next thing you know, you got an alcohol problem because they're going to kick in with that electronic harassment. So they're going to break down your morals, your values, try to get these bad habits going. And then what they're going to do afterwards, they're going to use the electronic harassment to kind of trap you into that habit. It's not before, maybe if you were an occasional drinker and you drank wine because it made you feel better, but you only did it once in a while, you're not going to get stuck in that habit because it's not your thing. But the electronic harassment, what they do is once they get you in that habit and get you kind of in that way, they kind of use electronic harassment to kind of get you stuck, with their ESP or whatever. All right, with not ESP, with however their electronic harassment works. So, but like I said, now that anyone, that doesn't mean that you have to be afraid oh my god, I was on drugs, they're going to get me back on drugs. And yeah, they are definitely going to try to get you back on drugs. But now that you know this, and now that now that you have this information, and you can start figuring out ways to stop that pressure, or at least reduce it, so that you don't get back on drugs. So that's what I was saying. And so later on it says, since electrical stimulation does not carry specific thoughts, it is not feasible as a technique to implant ideas or direct behavioral performance in a specific context. Because of its lack of symbolic meaning, electricity could not induce effects comparable to some post-hypnotic performances. And that's on page 96. So ESP, electrical brain stimulation. I think I got it wrong the first time. Okay. I said of. I had of in there. All right. So ESP, electrical brain stimulation, can't implant ideas into your head. Delgado's research dealt with raw energy, a pure impulse that just zaps or buzzes the neurons and sets off a domino effect. However, TIs talk about a technology called voice to skull, or V2K, which can transmit sound. That is also documented and real, whether you want to believe it or not. During random talk, I will show a video that demonstrates an audio spotlight device that uses a laser beam to transmit sound. The audio spotlight is available for the general public to purchase, and since the audio spotlight can transmit sound and feels as if it's in your head, it can be used to implant ideas, and used with Delgado's technology, it can make you think that the idea came from you. In part two of this book, reading, Delgado talked about how ESP created the illusion of familiarity on page 70 of the PDF or in chapter 15 of the actual book. So I guess I was just saying how, like, maybe, like I said, Delgado's was using raw energy. There was nothing implanted in it. It was just like really just a shock that sets off. It was just like that knee. It's just like the impact of the hammer when the doctor hits your knee and your knee pops up. So it's just raw energy. There's nothing implanted in it, and so he's saying that you can't put any like messages or anything sound in that kind of like the kind of electricity he was using did not transmit sound or messages or video or audio, visual stimulus. Even though it could set off a series of events that could trigger those things. It could trigger audio hallucination. It could trigger visual issues and stuff. But it's not going to be like you can't say. You can't, just zap someone and tell them what to see and stuff. So then later on, V2K, if let's say if this, and I'm just doing this in context of what the gang stalkers could be using, and if they were using it, they could supplement that part or make up for that, little, that limitation by using V2K, which could transmit sound, which could transmit well, I don't know. Well, it could transmit sound. I don't know what could transmit visual. I haven't really looked into what transmits visual stimuli. But I mean, if you think about it, if you zap someone, if you use V2K and you tell someone and they don't know it's you, or they don't know V2K is being used on them, and you tell them, think of the color red. They like red, right? So you just automatically start thinking of red, and you don't know why and stuff. So I guess it could indirectly cause visual, but I don't know, whatever. So that's what I was explaining that. Okay, so then later on, sorry, I hope I didn't confuse you. So later on it says, unfortunately, advances in this area have been relatively slow, partly because of the intrinsic complexity of the problems involved, and partly because of a traditional fear and reluctance to disturb or deal directly with material substratum of mental activities, page 97. Delgado is complaining about the public's fear of his research in that sentence. And I thought that was important. Because he actually wrote, well, if you listen to it again, he wrote like a whole paragraph on it about how whatever. So I think that's what I'm reading next. At the beginning of the century, the public was generally hostile to surgery and considered it absolutely obscene for a surgeon to look into the most intimate depths of the body. With cultural and scientific advances, this prejudice has slowly receded, and the study of the human body is now recognized as essential for the advancement of medicine. And that's on page 97. So he's hoping that his type of research will follow historical trends and soon be acceptable. It has taken a while, but I think that soon the public will be more receptive to my manipulation research. And I'm kind of making a preemptive strike by asking the public to become aware of the downfalls before they are hypnotized by the benefits. I mean, I think last week or the week before, I was talking about how a cosmetic company could introduce, what was I talking about? Oh, the machine that detects when something's going to happen, and then like when you're going to have like a medical issue, and then it like sends something to the computer that's somewhere in you or on you or around you, and it would like stop it. And I think I made the example of how a cosmetic company, or maybe even a dermatologist company, dermatological, whatever, a cosmetics or a dermatologist a cosmetic company or someone in dermatology could dermat forget it. All right, so yeah, let's stick to cosmetics. So cosmetic, someone in a cosmetic company could make a device that kind of senses when a pimple is going to come, and then they'll zap you from their cosmetic company, so that the pimple doesn't come. So I said that, and I think another thing, I think if people are like really excited about virtual reality now, having those little um, things on their head. I think the little goggles and you look in. I think that's cool. I like it. Um, so that's something like what if they decided to just like augment that a bit so that you could like really feel the whole thing? What if they're like, here's a virtual reality suit. So not only will you like just have the goggles, but you'll have a whole suit and then like the whole suit would just like stimulate you or something, or you just lay on this mat, which I think it'd be more like they'll have like a virtual reality mat where you have the goggles on and you lay on the mat, and what the mat's going to do is it's going to like stimulate parts of your body to kind of give that sensation of whatever's happening that you're seeing. So like if you feel like you're falling, maybe the mat will zap per certain parts of your body and you're like, oh my god, I'm falling, or whatever. Or if you're playing one of those violent video games and you shot someone, it'll just like zap you and like your leg, and you'll feel like your leg is shot. But I could see like, and I think the generation now, because like, I mean, in earlier times, when you had a baby, which I thought was interesting because I saw something on the bus today, which was just like they were telling parents to actually pay attention to their kids. It was like, it's funny. It's not funny, but it was like a government notice, like, read, sing, and read, talk, and sing with your kids because it improves learning. So I'm like, of course, who doesn't know that? And then I'm just like thinking like, oh yeah, nowadays parents just plop a computer right into their kids' hands. They'll sit the kid in front of a television, and or give them a video game, and so like, you know, this new generation or these last few generations have been raised by computers. They've been having babysitters or nannies that are computers because the parents busy, and then the parents always on their phone. So it's like there's not a lot of like talking and singing, which like, I when I was growing up, or my generation was used to, your parents were talking to you, they were teaching you, like you spent more time together, you actually interacted more. But nowadays, I think what's happening is that, parents are not interacting as much with their kids, and maybe they found out, I don't know, I didn't look into it, but I thought that was interesting. So I mean, and that's just brought me back to this, that, now these new generations, they were raised with computers in their hands. They had some kind of computer device in their hands way before they were potty trained, probably, because the parents probably played music or had some kind of device that like blasted colorful sounds so their kids won't cry. And and I'm saying that because I think they'll be more receptive to computer devices. And if it comes out like, oh, we have this new device that could totally change that could make you want to play piano, they'll be more like, they're all happy about it. They love new technology, like every day, like people are paying $1,000 for a new phone when their old phone isn't broken. I think I think right now the public is more open to new technology. And I think the public, back in 1970s, people were not going to hear about behavioral technology or, mind control. But I think nowadays people will be more receptive to it. But of course, it's not going to be called mind control. I think behavioral technology is a term that's like very like, it sounds harmless, and it sounds advanced and it sounds helpful. So they're going to introduce it in a new way. So I kind of like want to start the ball rolling. Like, okay, it's gonna happen. These new technologies are gonna come out. The public's ready for it. The new generation's ready and more accepting towards it. But this is what you need to know. So later on, he says presentation of flashes of light with a stroboscope or of auditory clicks activates the corresponding cerebral analyzers and may unveil areas of excessive reactivity. So that's page 98. So TIs complain about hearing clicks around their head and sometimes see lights. So I wanted to point out that sentence, the sentence that mentions that. And that's all. I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if, actually, the reason why I wanted to point it out is because there's a video that PLN made. I don't know if it's called Electronic Harassment Lights or something. And it's interesting. So during an experiment, and video recording that experiment, through video. I was able to capture lights that came out of nowhere. I mean, the way that the experiment was done, it was like done in complete dark. There was like no way that light could get in. And during the experiment, like you could see lights like going through the wall and going through like the ear part. I don't know. You got to watch the video and stuff. And that was so strange. When I saw that, I kind of like freaked out. I was like, what the heck is that? Because it's just like the way the whole setup was. There was no way those lights could appear. And there's like no explanation for those lights right now. So that video is posted somewhere. I think it's called Electronic Harassment Lights. And that was exciting. Because I feel like I haven't seen any videos on electronic harassment that showed like the actual lights or strange lights like that in connection with electronic harassment. So I thought that was a big deal. You can check that video. It's not like when you watch it, it's not like you're gonna be like, whoa, that's awesome or anything like that. It's just that, it was just weird because there's no explanation for it. Where did those lights come from, and what are those lights? So, and it's weird because I think TIs have reported seeing lights like that, except it wasn't so clear or just like flashes of light sometimes in their surroundings. And so I thought that was important. And that's why I kind of brought up that presentation of flashes of lights. But I didn't really go into that sentence, so I'm not even sure if it's relevant, but I just wanted to throw that in there. So with that, my long speech, I really hope that you do understand why I got so excited about that statement from Delgado, because I'm not crazy, I'm not exaggerating, but it's like that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And I hope like if people watch this, if in the replay, they will understand why that's huge. So with that, let's go to the next 15 minutes. Okay. Coughing is a common signal in the gang stalking campaign. I'm not a gang stalker. I don't believe in that crap. So I wasn't trying to like send out a secret message to the gang stalker. I'm one of them. No, I'm actually coughing. So don't be. So I just thought I would clarify that for TIs, because I probably, if I saw this video and I saw me coughing like that, I'd probably like, oh, that's a signal. Is she? No. So no, I don't believe in that stupid stuff. So I just really had to cough. So let's see. So let's go through that. So he says many other possible applications could be explored, including the treatment of anorexia nervosa by stimulation of the feeding centers of the lateral hypothalamus, the induction of sleep in cases of insomnia by excitation of the center median of or of the caudate nucleus. Okay, by excitation of the center median or of the caudate nucleus, the regulation of circulating ACFH by activation of the posterior hypothalamus, and the increase of patient's communication for psychotherapeutic purposes by excitation of the temporal lobe. And that's on page 99. So ESB can suppress the appetite, but it can also increase it. It can keep someone skinny. As I gave you an example about the girl who, like, they were so pathetic that they just, she said she thinks they did something to make her suppress her appetite so she'd be skinny and lose her curves because she just liked being curvy. So stupid. Or it could keep someone fat, So if someone's trying to lose weight and they can't seem to lose weight and they're like, oh my God, they see a cake, cake and they have to eat it, it could be used for that too. And he's also saying that it can make you more talkative. They've used that to make people more talkative. Isn't that weird? I don't know if it was in this part or in a later part. He talks about that, how there was a patient who didn't talk that much, and so like they zapped him to make him talk more. And sometimes, like, if you don't talk much and someone zaps you, you're just gonna talk about whatever. So that's kind of scary. So later on, it says a two-way radio communication system could be established between the brain of a subject and a computer. Certain types of neuronal activity related to behavioral disturbances, such as anxiety, depression, or rage, could be recognized in order to trigger stimulation of specific inhibitory structures. That's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's interesting. The delivery of brain stimulation on demand to correct cerebral dysfunctions represents a new approach to therapeutic feedback. While it's speculative, it is within the realm of possibility according to present knowledge and projected methodology. And that's on page 99. The Pavlov watch uses a similar technology, except it doesn't require any electrodes implanted on the skin. It can't detect hunger, but someone can remotely shock you to deter you from overeating if you let them. When I read that, how it could certain types of neuronal activity related to behavioral disturbances such as anxiety, depression, or rage could be recognized in order to trigger stimulation of specific inhibitory structures. And that's like interesting because I think last week we read that I think he put some electrodes on someone who had like a history of violence, and the person was able to stimulate their brains to prevent the rage or the violence. I don't remember if it was last week or if I'd read ahead. And while I was reading that, I was like, you know what? They'll probably do that with prisoners, as a therapeutic thing. Um, and he was doing that actually with the mental health, with the mentally ill patients who had violent tendencies. I think it was last week, um, where they were able to stimulate themselves. But I mean, I could see them using that on prisoners who are violent and saying this is going to help you. Whether or not that's a good thing depends on whether or not there's consent. People have to consent, and how is it safe? Hmm. Anyway, so later on it says in certain cases, death can be delayed for weeks or months, and current technologies has placed upon doctors the tremendous responsibility. Excuse me. Uh, in certain cases, death can be delayed for weeks or months, and current technology has placed upon doctors the tremendous responsibility and nearly deific power of deciding the duration of patient survival. And that's on page 101. I said that medicine is a power field that can attract psychopaths. I have observed that beasts are definitely in the medical field and having no moral issues engaging in gang stalking campaigns while attending to patients. I call these doctors Kevorkians. If you hear me say Kevorkian, I'm talking about a doctor who's part of the psychopathic network. Uh, I've also noticed nurses. Um, let me see. I mean, I've noticed them a lot in the medical field. And that's very, very dangerous. And I think that's a very, very important reason why people need to start paying attention to psychopaths, how they are and what they do. Um, Stop glorifying them. It's like I think there's a book that says, "Oh, the wisdom of psychopaths" and blah blah blah. I think a psychopath. Let me not say it that because I don't know if the author is a psychopath or not, but I'm gonna write a book because upon my observations, I see how psychopaths get ahead. And no, it's not honorable. It's not recommended, and it's not the best way. Okay, the human way is the best way. I think I will one day write a book about how psychopaths really get ahead because they always do things to make it seem like, oh, I did this and I did that. No, 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 no. I've seen them in action and I've seen how they do it, how they get ahead, how they do things. And so like I'm gonna read so I could challenge. Well, I don't want to say I challenge, but yeah, and actually I could challenge that notion that psychopaths are better at fighting, better at getting ahead, more successful because of their psychopathic traits. That's BS. Anyway, so and that's just based on my research and observation of several types of psychopaths, from the pale ones to the berserk ones. Um, let's see. So I think that's it. Let's go on to the next 15 minutes. All right. I kind of went over 15 minutes. All right. Let's see. I'm playing the last few chapters so that you can say you read most of the book. You can see that Delgado was concerned about his subjects, at least at face value. I don't know what happened in the his lab, but from what he's written in his book, it seems like he is concerned about his subjects, and he thought it was important in his book to talk about research ethics. All right, so let's go back to that. I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was. All right, whatever. Let's do the next 15. Okay, so that was about 15 minutes. So, healthy people offered to be subjects in Delgado's and other similar research. He was aware of people wanting to ban his type of research, and he talked about that. And he also had to turn away volunteer subjects that wanted to be in experiments because he didn't think it would help. He didn't think it would help them, and turn them away. Um, that last sentence where he says, if an individual's behavior is deemed unacceptable by society, ESB can help them. Uh, that's kind of touchy. Because, I mean, of course, looking at face value, you know what he means. Like, if someone's a murderer, a drug dealer, or something like that, you could see where this could be beneficial. But I don't know if it was the first week when I showed some videos introducing you to Delgado in random talk, but I think he got in trouble, or it was either him or someone else, or some other researchers. There was rioting in the ghettos by African Americans, and I think some researchers in his type of research, mind control research, um, wanted to use their research to quiet the riots. So it's kind of tricky. That's where I think that's why the public, especially in America, oh, I got hair in my mouth. The public, especially in America, fears this technology, because undesired behavior by society could be you're a murderer, you're a drug dealer, you're a terrorist, you're a gang member, you're a thief, you're a sexual abuser, you're what else do people do? You're violent, or it could be you protest things that the status quo thinks are right. So that's it's very, uh, there's no definite line on what that means, behavior that is deemed unacceptable by society. Of course, normally, like people like you and me will jump to violent behavior and everything illegal, but people who are in the status quo and psychopaths would be like, oh, so if you protest pollution, in a major corporation, I don't know. So that's weird. I mean, it's not weird, but that's something that would have to be worked out. It's a There's no definite lines there, 'cause that sentence is so vague because it could encompass so much, not just what first comes to mind. So anyway, let's go on to the next 15 minutes. Oh my gosh. Some of these experiments that he talks about, so they I don't know if anyone heard it, but well, of course you heard it, but they put a microphone in the cat's ear. I mean, they put some kind of electrode in the cat's ear, then they whispered in the cat's ear. And then then they whispered in the cat's ear, and what they whispered came out through a loudspeaker. So they used the cat's ear as a microphone. That's just wow. And then I thought it was really like, ew. When they took the baboon, they put him under anesthesia, and I think that was like the last 15 minutes or something was before. They put him under anesthesia. They used some kind of agent, some kind of chemical to rinse out all the baboon blood. Then they put in human blood. Then they attached the baboon to a sick person. Something was wrong with her kidneys, and then they filtered her kidneys through the baboon's blood. This is so disgusting. And then afterwards, she went home well because they used the baboon's kidney to filter her sick kidney. She got better and went home, and then the baboon came back and it was fine. That's just yuck. Oh my god. But, weird things scientists do. Anyway, so let's get back to the book. Well, I mean, that is part of the book. These strange experiments that he talks about. All right. So the PDF that I gave you stops at chapter 21. So you really have to listen because there's nothing to read unless you buy the book. The book is expensive right now for some strange reason. I don't know if it's being used. You know what? I was gonna say maybe it's being used in a college course, but I don't know if anyone's talking about this anymore, but it's really expensive. I got it on Kindle for like $10 about 2 years ago, but I think the publisher stopped, putting it on ebook. So, um, I think Scribd someone put it on Scribd, SCRBD, but I don't know how much they're charging for it, and I don't know if they're doing like a 30-day free offer so that you can read it. And where else did I see it? Yeah, even, like, when I was looking for it on Barnes& and Noble didn't really have it on ebook. They just had, like, the expensive version. Amazon didn't have it, and I don't know. Maybe the publisher will put it back on, a ebook. So anyway, I mean, yeah, or maybe the price will go down. I don't know. I think I was able to buy it too for, like, $12. I don't remember, but I know I got it on Kindle for like $10, 10, $11, one of those. So anyway, so back to I'm still talking about the book, but back to the topic. Um, so the PDF stops at page chapter 21. So in this section, Delgado talks about what he hopes his research will achieve. I'm going to go off topic again a bit, but excuse me, let's discuss why there was so much interest in mind control. I watched an interesting video. Actually, there were three videos from a Canadian show called The Fifth Estate that said that the US government became obsessed with mind control and brainwashing because during the Korean War, prisoners of war came back to the US denouncing the American way of life and repeating the enemy's propaganda. The CIA was convinced that the communists had found the key to brainwashing and Americans had to unlock the mystery of mind control to protect against the communists. This explanation puts the motive for mind control research as a search for defense against America's enemies. The government was also worried that the Soviets, because this was also near the Cold War, had developed methods to brainwash people. A CIA psychologist said that they were pressured to find any kind of means, chemical, psychological, etc., that people could use to influence the behavior of the people. This explanation makes sense of why the government poured money into mind control research and why the public was okay with it in the beginning. It was for practical reasons, you know. I talk about psychopaths a lot, but I don't think this spurred from a psychopath, someone in the government who's a psychopath saying, we need to control the people, so let's just do mind control research. No, they were concerned because, some US soldiers came back from overseas and they were like brainwashed and stuff and they were scared. I think they were probably scared that it would be used on all American citizens and threaten the democratic way of life. So they started researching mind control. And the public was okay with it because at that point the public was like, "Oh my god, help us, government." Government's like, "Well, we'll help you. We'll find out about this mind control stuff ourselves." And Delgado's type of research became about national security. The public was okay with it until they found out how the government was researching mind control. Wow, if you're gonna research how to brainwash people and manipulate the human mind, you can't really do that with rats and monkeys, can you? Because you can't really talk to rats and monkeys. You can't tell them how they feel. Rats and monkeys don't have jobs, pay taxes, walk around and talk about the government. They don't. So, unfortunately, if you want to research mind control and brainwashing, you're going to have to do it on human beings. Um, and the government was doing torturous experiments on people without their consent. It wasn't just poor people, and I think, and I'm not trying to defend their methods, but if you're gonna brainwash someone, you can't. You can't really just say, "Hi, we're doing an experiment today on brainwashing, so why don't you come in and we'll see if we could change your mind." It doesn't work that way because I think in order to brainwash someone, they can't know you're doing it, you know? it's kind of like a sneaky procedure where you're just like, injecting these ideas, whether it be psychologically, chemically, um, or electrically, So I think just the whole endeavor of learning about brainwashing and learning about mind control, you have to do it on unaware human beings. And I am not saying it's okay. I'm just letting you know why they had to go about it that way. And I'm not saying it's okay. Okay. But that's why they had to go about it that way. You can't do it on rats. You can't do it on monkeys. You have to do it on human beings. And it's really hard for you to get real results when you do it on human beings who know you're brainwashing them. There's like, it confounds things if they already know. So the government went about it this way, um, and they ended up doing torture experiments on people without their consent. And it wasn't just on poor people either. The government also went to other countries and experimented on well-to-do people. Remember, I told you that maybe mind control experiments, if Delgado's research continued and there was a ban on it on the United States, you could always take it to somewhere else. Um, and continue it quietly. And it turned out to be true. The US went somewhere else, to our wonderful neighbors in Canada. And they went there and they went to a well to do psychiatric facility or some kind of hospital, research hospital. And they got a lot of well to do people together. They told them they were going to, the person who headed this research was a top US psychiatrist, I think he was, well respected. He was just top notch. Like when you watch it, I hope you watch the videos. When you watch the videos, everyone was telling people like he's the best in the business. You're gonna get the best care. He's gonna take care of you. You're gonna end up feeling well. Let me stop exaggerating. But they made these people think like they were getting the best care in the business, and he was being secretly the CIA. It's so interesting. You got to watch these videos. So what the CIA did was they funded his research, but they didn't fund it as the CIA. They had a cover. They made a cover foundation called the Human Ecology, something for protection of human ecology or something, the Human Ecology Fund or something like that. And so they did that, and they went and they funded this guy's research. I think in the video they say he didn't know he was doing research for the CIA. He just knew he was doing something for the Human Ecology Foundation. And so he did all this research. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Whoa, he, and it's hard. Like when you watch the video, it's hard to decide where to put him because you hear the victims talking about it because he did it. He was trying to design a new research, and he believed in he he was trying to do he used psychology and chemicals. So his theory was that if he erases these people's minds and memories and puts them to sleep and then use psychology by the way of playing tapes while they're asleep and under the effect of chemicals, he could somehow erase the illness or the thought of illness. I don't know if he thought illness was just a mental state. That's what I'm guessing. You have to think illness is a mental state for you to just erase it through mind, power, through erasing the mind. So he was trying to erase the illness in their minds, or maybe he was trying to kickstart the brain. I don't know what I don't know what he was thinking. Okay, it just go into the video, but so I'm just gonna state it because I have no idea what was going on in this guy's head. So he thought what he did was he used some kind of device that shocked them and short-circuited their brains and erased their memories. And I mean, like, it was so sad. Like, they were talking about it. They didn't remember their kids. They didn't remember their family. They didn't remember anyone. Like, he wiped out their lives. Okay. He did it so bad that some were reduced to baby status. They had to be potty trained again. Like, the device that he used LSD, and then he used some kind of stuff that shocked their brain. Some people had to learn how to it was sad. So anyways, so here they are, these wealthy people. The one of the people who talk, she's the wife of someone who was in parliament in Canada. So it's not like, Wow. So he went there and he did this research on them and messed up their lives. And he was working for the CIA. CIA, he didn't even know it. So he did their experiments. After a while, everyone was so afraid because he was such a top-notch psychiatrist or whatever he was, physician, who like knew his thing, and they were so excited about his new technology. And it was sad because they said people were walking around like crazy. It looked like a freaking psych ward in there, and it wasn't supposed to be. Like, this guy went in because he had a pain in his leg, and they like secretly experimented on him. They like injected him with drugs and stuff, and he said his mind was messed up just because he had a pain on his leg. Some females went in there because they had postpartum depression, and it ended up like, under experimentation by this guy, just because they thought they were treated by. Oh, it was disgusting. But you need to watch the video. There's 3 parts to it. I suggest you watch all 3 parts. But it wasn't just okay. The innocent victims were practically tortured under the guise of receiving treatment for disorders, and that was part of the reason why the general public didn't want mind control experiments, and there were bans against it. It wasn't just that it achieved its goal. That was scary too. That you were able to remotely control people. That was scary to people too. But then it was revealed how the government got its information, which was through torturing people and erasing their minds. And as you can see, it didn't matter if you were rich or poor. Like, they just did all kinds of economic levels. And I guess that's part of what they think is, well, that's part of doing thorough research. Is this only going to work on poor people? Is it only going to work on, because it's a population research. So you got to do it throughout the whole population. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just explaining it. But I'm guessing that's how, they went about it. And they were banned against it because the public was horrified when they found out what happened to these people. But despite all that, the government and the other researchers got the information they needed, and they achieved their mind control goals. The subject is taboo now because of the government's shameful methods. And I will post an article about Delgado that will show that his research was funded by the military. I don't know if it was the Navy or the Air Force. I think the Navy was funding his research. But anyway, it's in the article. And uh, and the reason why I'm giving you background on the public and the government's interest in mind control is to show that it didn't seem to originate from evil or diabolical reasons. Like, whoever was president at the time, or whoever was the CIA at the time, wasn't thinking, oh, we need to control the Americans. What was this, like the 50s? People were like wearing hoop skirts and stuff. They weren't worried about, I don't know, they were eating burgers and watching movies outside. They weren't really, I mean, I think people were pretty much under control in the 50s. There wasn't anything big, right? So, I mean, the government, so it's not like in the 70s, or what was it, like that period where everybody was rioting and stuff and just mad. And I'm not making fun of it, but they weren't like I don't think there was any psychopathic reasons to start mind control. I believe it at this point in time, until more information comes, that it did arise from national security issues and the war between Korea and the communists brainwashing, and they wanted to keep up on what their enemies were doing and have the same weapons or methods that they did, or better. And so it wasn't evil or diabolical reasons, but from reasonable concern for national security. But it could have taken a diabolical turn after some psychopaths got wind of it, but who knows? I mean, yeah, it starts out as, okay, this is national security. I think Russia's doing this. I think Korea did this. We need to get on top of this. But if you're a psychopath and you're in the government and you hear about this, you're like, oh, yeah, national security. Let's do this mind control thing. Yeah, yeah, of course you would love it. Yeah, let's get into this. And so now I think definitely if there were psychopaths in the government at the time, they jumped at the opportunity to learn how to control people, because that's their territory, not their territory, but that they love doing that. And I think it got out of hand because here they were, they had government backing, they had the funding, the public was okay with it. That's a psychopath's dream. Yeah, pay me, give me free money to learn how to control a population, under the guise that it's national security. So I'm not saying the whole government's full of psychopaths, but if there were psychopaths involved, you can see how this got out of hand. And from my Honestly, from my research, I can see how something could start out good, and then when the psychopaths get involved, it could turn really ugly and bad. And you just like, I mean, if you don't know the background or you're not in the know and observing them like me, you'd be like, "What the heck happened? Everything was so nice." And but if you know about psychopaths and how that works and how they can ruin everything, okay, and they could ruin everything. Um, good if you let them or if you're not aware of their tactics, you can see how this could go very, very wrong. And this did go very, very, very wrong. So I suspect that some psychopaths got in on it for their own reasons, not national security. So that's it. I wanted to provide some background around that, and then let's go to the next 15 minutes. Okay, that was 15 minutes. All right. So this may be boring, but it is good for discussion. It's helpful to see the way that some of the scientists who do these types of research think, or in Delgado's case, thought. Scientists with hard science viewpoints usually see things as cause and effect. For example, emotions to a poet are abstract and complex, but but scientists with a hard science point of view see emotions as chemicals or electrical signals. They see things differently from the general public or than the general public because they study nature and how it works on a molecular level. I don't agree with having a purely hard science viewpoint. It comes in handy sometimes, but when it comes to dealing with life and people, a hard science point of view can be dangerous. It often ignores the complexity of life, emotions, and interactions, even though those things do arise from even though those things arise from molecules, chemicals, and electricity. So let's go on to the next 15 minutes. All right. 15 minutes passed. It's going by faster, right? All right. So Delgado talks about how an infant isn't born free, but needs someone else to choose for them. I disagree. A child is born helpless, but a child is still free. A baby, if you ever if you have kids or if you ever babysat, you know that a baby practically runs the parent's schedule and time. The baby chooses when to sleep and eat. It really can't be controlled or told what to do. A child has to learn self control, and reasonable restraints are put on the child's behavior by parents and society in order to help the child. Be a functional part of society. A parent makes choices for a child only because the child hasn't learned how to survive on its own or attend to its own needs yet. A child gets confused by too many choices, not because it doesn't know how to choose, but because it doesn't know what to choose. Experience is what the child lacks in making a choice among the many selections, not free will. Let's go on to the next 15 minutes.
On Earth?
All right. I went over 15 minutes because I was doing something else. All right. So, I don't really agree with Delgado's ideas on freedom. I understand where he's coming from, but his ideas on freedom don't sound like freedom. And that's the only commentary I had for that 15 minutes. So let's go back to it. Okay. So Delgado wrote that enslaved African Americans were probably happier than free African Americans who live in ghettos back in the 70s. I doubt that. He talks about behavioral technology. It says Skinner proposed that a technology of behavior is possible and that it can be used to help solve currently pressing human issues such as overpopulation and warfare. Almost all major problems involve human behavior and they cannot be solved by physical and biological technology alone. Skinner was an American psychologist best known for his influence on behaviorism. Skinner referred to his own philosophy as radical behaviorism and suggested that the concept of free will was simply an illusion. All human action, all human action he instead believed was a direct result of conditioning. Skinner is also well known for NLP. Ati tried to use NLP in the beginning of the campaign against her, and it worked, but then she felt something undo it. She thinks that something that undid the NLP's work was electronic harassment. Even though she used NLP, she believes in free will. Even though she used NLP, she believes free will is real and not an illusion. And it seems like back to what Delgado said, it seems that people want to stop wars and fighting. The answer may not be behavioral technology, but becoming more aware of psychopaths who are probably responsible for 75% of the world's problems. I think, in my opinion, the psychopaths are not treated as dangerous as they should be treated. And everyone thinks about the psychopaths who are violent, the psychopaths who are in prison, the psychopaths who kill and murder people and steal and, destroy property. Okay, those are your textbook psychopaths. But there's also the psychopath next door, the psychopath who knows how to hide in society, who knows when to stop, when to push, and then when to push a little more. It's like they're really well adapted to causing all kinds of mayhem and probably more mayhem than the textbook psychopaths who have been caught and are being rehabilitated or are in prison. Um, and I and the psychopaths who are out there, and it's been acknowledged by most some psychiatrists who study psychopaths that not all psychopaths will end up in prison. And they've said, I don't know if they said 1 in 4 people are psychopaths, but they too worry about, okay, so what are the psychopaths who are not in prison but out in the public, what are they doing? So they always say, oh, they are the white collar crime people who, um scam people out of their money or take money from companies and stuff. But from my research, I think the psychopaths who haven't gotten caught yet are the gang stalkers. They're the people who are out there right now preying on TIs and other people, even non TIs, to get their network's agenda and even their own needs met because they're undetected. People aren't paying much attention to them because I don't know. I don't the thing is just like this personality disorder that, and you know what? I did too. When you don't know how bad a psychopath can get, even if it is a psychopath like a berserk path who shows you they're off, you don't really think. I understand where the public is getting from because even as I'm watching these people do their dirt in peace, you know, it's hard to wrap your mind around. Like, how could you do something like that? How could you behave like that? Like, I still find it hard to believe half the stuff that they did, and I only know a little bit about what they're doing, covertly. But I think that if you really, really want to start you know, fixing these problems about wars and people fighting. Stop saying, "Oh, it's just human nature. Humans are just like that." No, these people are very inhuman. One of the things that TIs always say is like, "I don't know. There's something very not human about them." These people, I don't think it's human nature. I think these are psychopaths. That's mostly causing the problems. And if you want to start solving these problems or at least get a grasp of it, you want to start looking into the everyday psychopath. What are they doing out there? What have they done? What's going on with them? Because they're a little bit too quiet, aren't they? Especially with the tendency of their natures. It's more than the ones that we've already caught. We're rehabilitating. We have in prisons. We're the ones who are doing like the really illegal crimes. There's the quiet ones, the covert ones, and they need to be watched, monitored a bit more, and people need to pay attention to that because that could be what's wreaking havoc. They are the bullies. Their kids are the bullies. They are the ones in workplaces, wreaking havoc. They're doing all kinds of mischief. They're wrecking families. It's just like they're doing all kinds of mischief, and that's where I think a lot of a lot of energy needs to start going to now, aside from behavior technology and finding more military weapons and stuff. I think you need to start researching the psychopath a bit more and learning more about them and what they're doing out here, the covert psychopaths and what they're doing and what kind of mischief they're causing in the public. So with that, let's go to the last 20 minutes of the book reading. Okay. So, done. Um it was a roller coaster ride. It started off slow in the beginning, kind of boring to some people. Then we went into the research and it was an emotional ride. I could just imagine like how TIs felt, like hearing everything, well, most of the things that they described, talked about in a book that confirmed that there is a technology that created the same effects back in 19 back around 1970s or before, and just like having some sort of, if not explanation or some more direction about what is happening to them. And then, like it's real or something like it is real. And then just hearing about, who this guy is, what he's done, and that his research was common back in 1970s. It's a lot, isn't it? All right. So, how is this temporary book club reading different from other information videos about electronic harassment? So there are several differences, but the main ones are you actually read or listened to the book. I didn't read it for you and tell you what it said. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I've done that before. But for a topic like this, it was better to have you hear it for yourself. You get my interpretation of the book, but you are also able to make your own interpretation, whether or not it agrees with mine. The next difference is that some videos I've seen on the issue point to the government working on some future technology. It makes electronic harassment seem out of reach and bigger than life. It is something only the government can do. And who can fight the government with their top secret experiments? It seems like it's saying the government's working on this now and it's top secret and you can't find out any more about it. And you can't have access to it because it's top secret. It's locked up in some kind of like um, in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest or wherever they put secret government places, or maybe it's underground. I don't know where they put secret government places. And it's all like barbed wire fence and tough guys standing right in front of the um, entryway who'll shoot you down if you try to enter. You know, that's how it's portrayed. And you know what? Maybe it is like that. I don't know. So yeah. So I mean, what I'm saying is that what they're working on now is probably an advanced version of what you fear they haven't achieved yet. So what you fear they haven't achieved yet has been achieved, and they're probably working on a more advanced version. So if all those barbed wire fence and military guys standing in front of you with big guns ready to shoot you if you dare go near the government secret experiment sites, that's probably something that's more advanced than what you're fearing, and which could be scary because it's more advanced than that. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just being silly. Um, so it does make it seem out of reach and bigger than life. So what I'm saying is that what's probably being guarded by behind the fence and underground or wherever it is the government hides their top secret experiments is probably a more advanced version of what you feared they haven't done yet, which they've already done. I hope that makes sense because I said it like 3 times. It is something only okay, so my approach showed that mind control experiments were a normal and common part of academic life, and the general public wasn't too bothered by it until it went too far. Too far meaning it actually achieved its goal of mind control, and the government went about it in an inhuman way. The general public was horrified at the research experiments and the results of these types of experiments. The general public was scared and there was a big public outcry. The government had to stop funding and supporting mind control research and assure the general public that it wouldn't be allowed. The public was soothed and the government probably covertly continued the research. I don't think any government would pass up a chance to advance research of that type, especially if they think their enemies have those weapons at their disposal. So mind control.
Recording paused.
All right. So mind control. Hold on. Let me see what's going on here. All right. So if you watch this video, that was just that was what's that thing called? Talk shoe cutting me off. Anyway, so mind control was an open issue that the government and the general public spoke about until it actually worked. I can't really see any big research universities passing up a chance to quietly continue this research either. It's too tempting, whether or not you are a psychopath. Non psychopaths will envision the benefits of behavioral technology, and psychopaths will salivate at the thought of remotely controlling other people. So my approach to this mind control topic is that it's already here. It's been here for a while. Let's deal with it. The government is probably involved, but I'm not sure how much of a diabolical intent the government would have. After all, America is still a free country and these psychopaths haven't taken over. I think there are some members of the government who are involved in the psychopathic network, but I don't think it's the whole government. I think there is still some resistance to mind control on a government level because if there wasn't, then the beast wouldn't be crawling and sneaking around. The beasts are the type of people who would just be all up in your face with their technology. They would throw their behavioral technology weight around like a bully if they could. And because this is a free country, I think that average, so I don't think that everyone in the government is in on it and want this to happen. I think there are some people in the government who don't know what's going on. I think there are some people in the government who do know what's going on but stay quiet because if they don't, they'll get hurt. Um, I think there's some people in the government who do know what's going on and maybe they're trying to do the best they can to expose it. And I think there are people in the government who know what's going on and they support it. So I just think it's a very diverse government scene. Um, and I think the only way to lay everything on the line is exposure. Let's get this out there. Let's talk about it, because psychopaths like to be sneaky. And I think that a lot of psychopaths, um, I think this has gotten into the hand of psychopaths and they're using it to bully and threaten people into silence. And it's about time to just expose this thing, talk about it, and not give the psychopaths monopoly over this and give them this weapon. Weapon, I don't mean just the technology that they may have developed, but weapon meaning that, you know, the concept of mind control, the concept, the research, the information, like they have a monopoly over it because no one in the general public wants to touch it or go there. And I think it's time for the general public to go there again because we went there before. It's time to go there again and challenge what has been done or what could still be or what is probably still going on. Um, so that's what I am about the government and mind control. So, and the reason why, and because this is a free country, I think that average citizens were able to do their own mind control research. It may not have been as high tech as, people working in a prestigious college's lab or uh, for the military on some military lab or anything. But I think average citizens probably could have read a book, probably could have read the research and put two and two together and did their own thing. Any psychopathic scientists who worked on mind control research and and that is research that psychopaths would really be interested in, could have covertly continued their work. Not to mention that most of these types of research were published and available to the general public. An example is this book by Delgado. During random talk, I will show you I will show some videos of average people building their own technological devices. Since the information is out there, Delgado's information is out there. I'm sure that if I probe some more, I could get his research paper and his methodologies and stuff, and that information is out there and available for everybody. And if you're like if you're an average person with I don't know, like above average intelligence, or if you're of average intelligence and you try hard enough, maybe you could understand what he did. And I think people could pick up stray cats and dogs and do this on their own if they're interested. Technology, since the information is out there, um, and anyone from the government to the general, and excuse me, since this information is out there, And since this information is out there and anyone from the government to the general public can have access to it, that's why I believe there are different factions of this gang stalking network, and also why TIs have different responses to the question, who are the gang stalkers? In the 1970s, your grandparents and parents shut down mind control experiments and made it very clear they wouldn't support that kind of human experimentation. There has been a silence on the issue since then. Now it's 2020 and it's time to talk about the issue again because mind control experiments didn't go away when it was banned. In a way, the innocent people who were experimented on were also swept under the rug with the issue. Whatever happened to them? I'm worried about talking about MK Ultra because, as I mentioned before, if you even talk about it, people roll their eyes and call you crazy just because you brought it up. The book club videos will become the electronic harassment 101 crash course, and I will have a playlist with 3 videos showing how the U.S. government went to Canada to do mind control on wealthy or affluent Canadian citizens seeking help for routine psychiatric and health issues. Those were the videos that I mentioned before. In these videos, you will see the actual victims and their health records showing some of the things that were done to them and with the consent of their own government. So the US government and the Canadian government decided that they will do these experiments on Canadian citizens. Um, it's very interesting, and it shows that MK Ultra was very real, and that's what the project was. It was under MK Ultra, and I think that's what they called it, and they had other names for it. Shows that MK Ultra was very real, so real that the Canadian victims won a lawsuit against the U.S. government. So I wonder what happened to the U.S. So I mean, if it's not real, how did they win the lawsuit? And if it wasn't legitimate, if it was crazy, and if it's just like I don't know. Um, I don't know. So I think I'm just thinking like I haven't really watched a lot of TI videos on MK Ultra. I'm not gonna lie to you. Most of the videos I watched on MK Ultra were the ones by the History Channel and everything like that. And I don't know, I think the general public thinks those are sensationalized because it's dramatizations mostly. They don't really speak to anyone who actually went through it. But the 3 videos that I'm showing you, they speak to the actual victims, and you see actual health records and the whole process they went through to sue the U.S. government. And I think they sued the Canadian government too. I'm not sure. All right. So not all of them. Okay, so real. And they won the lawsuit. So I wonder what happened to the US victims. So not all of them were accounted for. Even in the Canadian lawsuit, only a few victims received compensation for what was done to them. So I'm thinking most of the US MK Ultra victims probably had to deal with the damage that was done to they had to deal with the damage that was done to them on their own. They had to put their lives back together and move on. They had kids and grandkids. So they probably had kids and grandkids. Some of the stalking that some TIs reported could be from the government or some of the government scientists watching to see what happened to the mind control victims and how their children coped. Or maybe they wanted to see how long the brainwashing lasted even after it was they wanted to continue, like, monitoring the scene and seeing what happened. Um, s Even if the government stopped the experiments, a handful of the scientists involved could have continued secretly monitoring the victims. Most scientists are curious people and would wonder about the subjects the same way I am. What happened to them? How have they adjusted to normal life? How have they adjusted to normal life? How have their bodies recovered since the experiments? Have they recovered since the experiments? How has it affected their families? And if it's a scientist that was involved in the experiments, the curiosity level rises big time. And if that scientist is a psychopath, then you could probably bet on the experiments and monitoring to continue. You could probably bet on the experiments and monitoring continuing with or without a ban. A psychopathic scientist really wouldn't even care. They would just be like, oh, Anyway, so by not talking about the issue, it feels like the general public abandoned the victims and could have left them at the mercy of those who hurt them again. Those who could easily control and manipulate them because, after all, they were the ones doing the experiments on the victims' minds. And then I thought about it, I said, what if the gang stalkers were the children of the victims kept under experimentation for generations? Could they have been programmed to do whatever they are told to do by the people who experimented on them or their parents? If the experiments had continued to the next generation, the experimental hypothesis would be along the lines of, would mind control parents raise brainwashed kids? Or how would a mind controlled community function? Um, it'll, if it comes out later that gang stalkers are the kids of mind control parents, or that they were victims, or of the mind control, please remember that gang stalkers are extreme psychopaths and very dangerous. They have been raised to prey. They have been raised to prey on innocent people. It could take a long time to change their predatory tendencies. From my observation, I can tell you that a lot of the gang stalkers actually enjoy hurting others. Only a few showed any remorse, and at this point in time, it's hard to know whether it is real remorse or deception, because psychopaths like to deceive. So I don't know if those few are like really sincere or if this is just like to keep the game going. I don't know. But a few did appear to see remorse, seem to be remorseful when I went subliminal. And don't make the mistake of letting your guard down, even if it turns out to be true that some gang stalkers are MK Ultra victims or the descendants of MK Ultra victims. Um, just keep your guard up because they will prey on your kindness. They will take advantage of any kindness and compassion you show them. And psychopaths like to hurt. So just please keep your guard up, humans, society, even if it turns out to be the case, because you're dealing with like a beast here. And if they could be rehabilitated, it might take a while. But in that while, they will still be attacking you. Even if you're like, oh, I'm so sorry what happened, let me help you. They will still attack you. They will still attack you. A lot of TIs will show you. I know a TI said that once. And she doesn't know if it was real or not, but she was there was a gang stalker who lived next door to her, and she was having like heart issues. So she knocked on the TI's door and asked for help because she couldn't like do things for herself. And the TI, and she knew she was a gang stalker. Like this person had been like out and out open. I'm a gang stalker. I'm gonna get you. All the signals, red, coughing, everything. So she let the TI know. So the TI feeling like, okay, because the TI is human and this person needed help, she's like, okay, I'll help you. So the TI called 911 for her and waited with her until 911 came. So when the EMT came, they treated her like crap. The gang stalker, they treated the gang stalker like crap. And the TI, being human, was just like saw a sick person being treated like crap by people who were supposed to help her, and she was like trying to defend like the gang stalker, like you need to be kinder to her. And what happened was, like, the gang stalker looked at her and gave one of the signals while she was trying to help her. So she was just like, I'm done. Let them be mean to you. I don't care. Goodbye." She just left. She's like, I'm trying to help you. I came out here, and even though you've done some really crappy stuff to me and you're part of a network trying to hurt me, I came out here. I helped you. I stayed with you until they came. They treated you like crap. I'm standing up for you, and you're going to turn around and give the signal and still continue your little psychopathic bullshit. I'm sorry to curse. Forget it. She was just like, she just laughed. So that's why I'm telling you, be careful. They will take advantage of your kindness, and it just takes a while. If they could be changed. No one knows if they can be rehabilitated. I think there are some in this network who just love being evil. They love hurting people. That's not going to change. And they will, pretend, oh, yeah, 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 I'm trying to change. And they'll like just use you and milk you for the system. Milk you for, and they'll probably abuse the system and stuff. There are some who are in between. There's some that might be remorseful, but no one knows for now. So just really, really, really like, I know as a human society and as a human being, you forgive your enemies, you try to help those in need and stuff. But on this level, because these are predators, these people prey on human beings, these people prey on kindness and compassion, you have to be careful. Okay. So with that said, some TIs claim to be descendants of MK Ultra victims who are still being victimized. And whether that is true or not is a matter of having a real investigation instead of dismissing all the TI's claims as crazy. Not all TIs claim to be stalked because of MK Ultra or any government program. A lot of TIs don't know why they're being stalked, and some point to psychopaths that they've had issues with. So either way, it's time to reopen the discussion of mind control experiments. What was done, what was discovered, what was developed, what happened to the victims, what happened to the scientists and others involved, what has been happening publicly and covertly in regards to these types of studies, what needs to be done, etc. Um, let's find out as much as possible about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the evil, because there is evil. This psychopathic network is evil, and I would say diabolical. And if there was a word that's worse than diabolical, I would use that. Like, there's no way to describe what they've done, and I don't even know everything they've done. Like, I stopped at some point because I'm like, I feel like if I know everything they've done, I wouldn't even like. I would just, I don't know. That's how evil I think they are. So whether or not you like it, these experiments happened. The general public can the general public can continue being afraid of mind control because it is scary. It is. So continue being afraid of it. But I want the general public to face those fears. It's already done. Innocent people like the TIs have already been hurt. Okay, that's one of the fears. Oh, what if innocent people got hurt? The victims of the MK Ultra experiments got hurt, and if you watch the videos that I'm going to put up, you'll see that TIs have gotten hurt. So that's already done. That the damage has already been done, and now let's deal with it. Okay, TIs are out there. They're willing and ready to tell you what's happened to them, give you insight into it, give some clues as to how to stop this, who's involved. Let's talk about it. Okay, there are some TIs who have mental health issues. There's some TIs who probably have lost it because of the pressure. There's some TIs who came in with mental health issues. Yes, there is a percentage of those. So if you find that some TIs are like that, don't say, "Oh, well, I told you they're crazy," and say the whole lot of every TI is like that. No. Okay, it is a diverse population. Some TIs don't have mental health issues. Some TIs have dealt with the situation and kept themselves sane in some way. So if you see TIs who aren't mentally stable, don't point to them and say that encompasses everybody, every TI. Okay. Like I told, have lost it. You will find some who are stable, and you will find, in all kinds of levels. So let's talk to as many as you can. Um, to get a better picture of what is really going on. So, think in the future that we haven't achieved yet and we don't have to deal with yet, that your grandkids are going to have to deal with. No, it's something your grandparents have dealt with and your parents have dealt with, and it's something that needs to come up again so that you can deal with this, so that your grandkids don't end up in this messed up society controlled by a bunch of psychopaths, like completely. Right now, it's still a human society. Let's keep it that way. So the good news is that you can now say you have read or listened to most of Delgado's book, except for 5 chapters, and you listen to some commentaries on it. So it's basically a discussion. I wish there was more of a discussion, but I'm not pressuring anyone to talk. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to. So there, you listen to some commentaries on it, and if you want to say that you read the whole book, then go back and read or listen to the first 5 chapters that I left out. You can probably understand it a bit better now. Like, if I had played those chapters to you in the beginning, you probably would have been bored. You wouldn't know what's going on. You wouldn't know. It's just because it was more of a discussion. It was leading to it, but it's like he didn't write this book for the layman. He wrote this book for people who were skilled, who were in the same field of study as him. So it would make sense to those people. But if you had no clue, about Delgado's research, it just would have been like gibberish to you. So you could go back and read them. You'd probably have a better understanding now. So although it might still be a little fuzzy because this book wasn't written for the layman, I think you have a better understanding of it. Sorry, I wrote that twice. So the audiobook that I use, that you listen to in this course, I got it from Audible. So you could go to Audible, and I got it. I think it was like 17.99. So that's a lot cheaper than the $20 or whatever. And so if you want to go get that and listen to the first 5 chapters, and it's Audible, Audible. You could get that. You just type in the book, the name of the book, which is part of the title, by Jose Delgado. I don't know if you have to put empty. I doubt it. Um, and then you could get up the book and have fun with it. So for journalists and others in the media, if they watch this, I hope you will take the crash courses or take one appealance courses on gang stalking, organized harassment, or whatever you want to call it. It will help you write a balanced article that is informed and fair to both sides of the argument. Because a lot of times when people do, and except for maybe the History Channel, I think like some of like the really like History Channel. Okay. Yes, a lot of the like makeshift. Oh, okay, I don't mean to insult you, but a lot of articles. And I don't mean makeshift, but a lot of articles. What they do is they present what the TIs say, introduce you to that, and then right at the near end, they get a psychiatrist who tells you the TI is crazy, suffering from mental illness, and this whole group is suffering from it. And then that's it. And then like, oh, we feel sorry for the TI. That's like usually the formula for the articles written on TIs and even some videos. And that needs to stop because, it's not fair to the TIs. You're not presenting a balanced article. You're not presenting a fair view. You're kind of like dismissing the whole claim. You're kind of like setting the TI up so you could say, oh no, this is not true, whatever. And I mean, granted, there's not that much information out there, or I mean, there is a lot of information, but I guess the kind of information a journalist would look for is like something very, very solid, and a lot of the information that you're getting out there is anecdotal, which doesn't mean that it's wrong or it doesn't mean that it's not true. It's just that I think journalists want more like hard facts and stuff, and they're not getting it. But that's like no excuse not to like be fair to people who could be suffering or who could be getting hurt. So I'm not saying that the media has to agree with everything the TIs say, but the media needs to stop portraying TIs as crazy and give them a fair chance to be heard without sneering. Thank you to those in the media who have been fair to TIs, like the History Channel. I thought they were pretty balanced and stuff. I hope more will follow suit and just give TIs a chance to tell their side of the story without being made out as some crazy person. Or crazy people. So during part 1, I quoted an article about Delgado, and I told you I was going to give you a link to that article. It's actually a good article to start to like. It's a good beginning article on him. So now that you've read most of his book, this can give you some more background on him. I showed you some videos, but this article is really good too. Let me see. Let me post the article. Let's see. So that's the article. All right. So it's tribute to Jose Delgado, legendary and slightly scary pioneer of mind control by John Horgan. All right. So that's that article. So you can go check that out. So I hope that this also helps you understand what could be happening during electronic harassment TIs. I just want you to be gentle and kind to your body. Your body isn't causing the issue. It is responding to an outside stimulus. Sometimes that's how the gang stalkers get you sick. They use electronic harassment to fake symptoms of illnesses so that you undergo unnecessary procedures or take unnecessary medication. You end up treating a healthy body for an illness it doesn't have, possibly causing it to really become sick. It's hard to tell when you are really sick or when it is electronic harassment, faking symptoms of an illness. Every TI should work on being able to tell the difference. So here's an example, a quick example. Um, here's an example of electronic illness being used to make you injure yourself. So let's say the beast use electronic harassment, which I will now call EH, electronic harassment EH, just the first two letters of the first of the two words. Okay, so they use EH to make you feel as if your arm is itching. So you start to scratch that area. You keep scratching, and now your arm is red, right? Now you think you have a rash, and you go and you buy some rash cream. So you're unintentionally injuring yourself because you didn't even itch. You just felt a sensation of itching, and you scratch. And now you're medicating a healthy arm, even though it's over the counter medication. You buy some rash cream with some anti itch formula in it, right? So to your surprise, the rash or anti-itch cream doesn't stop the itch, and the beast increase the intensity of the itch because they think it's so funny that you scratched your arm is red, and now you're buying medicine, and yeah, because they are so immature and retarded. No insult to retarded people. They're so immature and just ridiculous. So remember that Delgado was able to increase and decrease the intensity of his electrical stimulation. So they could do that too. So they could just increase it. I'm supposing they could do that. They could increase it to increase the itching sensation once they find your threshold, or they find the level of the stimulation that will cause you to itch. So you decide to see a doctor because you think you might have an infection, or maybe, oh, that scratching did cause an infection, but let's say it didn't cause an infection. You think you might have an infection, or it could be something worse or something more serious. If you go to a normal doctor, they may find nothing wrong but prescribe antibiotics if it continues. You are now heavily medicating a healthy body due to electronic harassment, faking symptoms of an illness. You're not sick. You have what I call an electronic illness. And I did post an article, which is a basic explanation of what electronic illness is, and it's by PLN. I think it's in the description box of the first video. So electronic illness is caused by electronic harassment or some electronic device. Theoretically, it can be stopped simply by identifying the device and stimuli used and the effects it causes. There's no need for medication because it isn't a biological illness. So back to the scenario. So a normal doctor will probably do tests and make the appropriate recommendation. On the other hand, if you go to a beast doctor, who I call Kevorkians, you may be told that you have a serious disease and you might be medicated to death. Okay. So remember that, and that's why it's so important that we need to start talking about this, because there's psychopaths in every field, well, in most fields, in power, because psychopaths are attracted to power fields. And from my observation, there are extreme psychopaths that are part of this network who are in the medical field. And they're dangerous, okay? And they shouldn't be allowed to have access to sick people and make decisions on someone's health when they do what they do, and they're involved in what they're involved in. So remember that medicine is a power field. A doctor is responsible for the health of their patients, treats illness, and can make life or death decisions for their patients. Unfortunately, psychopaths are attracted to the social clout, the power, and the money that doctors usually have. So if a TI ends up with a beast doctor, that doctor will continue what electronic harassment has started and take it as far as they want, including misdiagnosis, deliberately recommending unnecessary procedures, and prescribing the wrong medication. And this is scary, but it is very, very, very possible. So yeah, it's just time to really, really like start looking into this, you know? And if you look into it and you decide that I'm wrong, okay, well, at least you did do diligence, okay? You looked into it, whatever. But at least look into it, you know? So with that said, behavioral technology, which includes mind manipulation, has been achieved and is probably advancing. It's time for the general public to stop holding their hands over their eyes and start looking into the issues that arise from these advances. I am going to have a random talk tonight, even though in life I've kept you over 4 hours. If you don't watch it, it's okay if you don't watch it. You can watch it on the replay. So if you want to go to sleep, good night. I understand it's almost midnight. I'm trying to keep it. I'm only showing 3 videos, but I have to do it to complete the course. So yeah, so if you want to watch on a replay, good night. Thank you for watching. If you want to watch it now, then I'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks for watching. Bye.